What do you do when you don't have enough? Meaning you're crying out, you're looking at your finances, you have lack in your life, maybe something's wrong with your body, maybe you know someone and they need something and you can't help them. It's a God thing. What do? I'll tell you. Good morning. Hey guys, how are you doing? I hope you're having an excellent day. Just sitting here drinking some coffee, worshiping the Lord. Today, we're going to be in 2 Kings. We're going to be in chapter 4. It's a very familiar story. We're going to glean out of this some principles. It says this: the wife of a man from the country of the prophets cried out to Elisha, "Your servant, my husband, is dead." Unexpected. "And you know that he reverenced the Lord. But now his creditors are coming to take my 2 boys as slaves." That's what they did. If you owed money in Old Testament times, they would take your house, they would take your cattle, they would take your kids, they would take you. They would make you a slave. That's why, guys, I hate to say it, you don't want to be in debt. Because if you're in debt, what? You're a slave to the lender and you lose your peace. I don't need to go any further than that. Try not to be indebted to anyone, any man. Elisha replied to her, "How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" "Your servant has nothing there at all," meaning she's already pawned, sold, done everything she knew to do in her physical strength. I've done everything. I mean, I've sold my shoes. I've sold all of his stuff off. I've done all these things. "Your servant has nothing there at all," she said, "except a small jar of olive oil." Elisha said, "Go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few." Okay, listen. "And go inside, shut the door behind you with your sons, pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to the side." She left him, shut the door behind her and her sons, brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. I'm wondering, guys, if she knew that oil was not going to stop, do you think maybe, just maybe, she would have tried to get more jars? I've always wondered that, but that's just me. I really think, imagine each jar was like $1,000, okay? And all you had to do was borrow it, Do you think she may have gone to some people that she didn't even know? "Can I borrow a jar? I only need it for a couple days," or whatever. "Bring me another one." But the boys replied, "There is not one jar left." Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the man of God, and he said, "Go sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what is left." Friends, that is probably one of the biggest acts of faith that I've ever seen, because when you're down and out, you really don't want to dig ditches. You guys know the story of the ditches with Elisha. These people, this great army of Israel, they are famished. They have no water. And Elisha, the great prophet, tells them, this is what you need to do. And friends, here's my point. Sometimes we're so down and out, we're so defeated mentally that we don't want to do what God says. We think, why bother? Isn't that what we do? We think, why bother? Is this even going to work? And we don't even want to go through the motions of it, not understanding the spiritual principle that's behind it, that God is backing what he told you. That's the dealio. You have no food, you have no water, and it's been days, and now you're to go out and dig ditches in the hot sun, and you have the promise that there's going to be water. Did they do it? They did it. What happened? God, miraculously, not by rain, he filled the ditches with water. And they got the victory. They were refreshed by the water. But on top of that, the army that they were chasing, they looked upon the water and they knew there was no water in that area. And the reflection kind of looked like blood. And so they started running towards them, only to realize that's not blood. They thought they had already been defeated. Someone had already, and they were just going to come in there and take the spoils. To the victor belongs the spoils. Did you hear what I just said? To the victor belongs the spoils. Who's the victor? There's only one victor. And there should only be one victor in your life, and that's Jesus Christ. Do you understand? So this woman, she's hungry. She's about to be thrown in jail. She thinks her kids are going to be taken any day now. She's asking Elisha, and she's basically saying this, and I hope you can say this same thing too. My husband, he honored God. He did the right thing. And it rains on the just and the unjust. We don't know why the man died, but he lived a life that was extraordinary before God. But she could put this before Elisha, and Elisha says, I know who you're talking about. Absolutely. That was a man of God. He honored God with his life, with his decisions, with his tithing, with his giving, with his generosity, with him. And Elisha tells her exactly what to do. Here's the problem. When God tells us what to do, we don't want to do it. Look at when God tells us what to do, we start trying to think, well, that's not going to work. We try to be smart. We think we're so wise. We're so this, we're so that. No, God's ways don't make any sense. God says, my ways are above your ways. They're not going to make sense. According to God, when you obey that which doesn't make sense, what you get is the victory. What you get is the miracle. What you get is what God spoke from heaven. But if you don't do this simple thing over here, you're going to be crushed. And God will allow you to be crushed. We have another story in the Bible with Naaman. He has leprosy. And again, he goes to the great prophet, and the great prophet Elisha says, dip in the Jordan 7 times. Well, Naaman, which was a highly decorated general for the opposite team, he goes away stewing. He says, Elisha didn't even come out. I mean, I thought he was just going to wave his hand over the spots and I was going to get better. And finally, it's an amazing story because the Spirit of the living God, that's the Holy Spirit that should be residing in your heart, comes over the servants. Okay, you have to see the subtlety. You have to read between the lines what's taking place. They didn't have this wisdom in and of themselves because, again, they're serving a pagan king and a pagan general. And the servants come up and they start counseling. Let's reason together. If Elisha had asked you to do something really difficult, would you have done it to get healed? And Naaman said, absolutely. What if he said, kill 1,000 people? Would you have done it? Bring me the foreskins. I'll do it right now. He asked you to do something really easy. See, Naaman is saying, hey, where I live, they have better rivers. I mean, if I was going to be cleansed, I would be cleansed by those rivers, not these rivers. But God is asking us to do things that don't make any sense in these end days. And if you want your needs met, and if you want to stay safe, and if you want to be blessed, you're going to walk by faith and not by sight. And you're going to do it God's way, and you're not going to try to reason your little weasel mind around things. You and I can't figure it out, ever. It doesn't make any sense what God's asking us to do, asking us to be. Why he delays, why he's quiet. Does he wear a wristwatch? He doesn't need to. He's the creator of time. Do you realize there was no time until you and I were created? Why did there have to be? A day is 1,000 years. 1,000 years is to a day. Why did God need a watch? He's from everlasting to everlasting. A billion years later, what's that to God? 1 trillion years later, what's that to God? What is it to the person who dies without Jesus Christ because they tried to be so smart and figure everything out? And they tried to use man-made wisdom, logic, and religion to make it to heaven. You will be rejected, my friend. You think it makes sense? If you think it makes sense, you're going to be rejected. It doesn't make sense that God would create us, then come and be born of a virgin, live 33 and a half years, die on the cross for my sins. It doesn't make sense that God the Father predetermined the killing of God the Son so you could have life. What makes sense to me is this: don't even make the people in the first place, then you won't have to die for them. But why did he do it? Because he loves you and he loves me. And it's his way and not your way. And if you follow men, you're following men to your detriment. You're following men to the end, which is hellfire. You will be rejected. This book tells us over and over and over again about these people who try to reason it out, who try to do it a different way. It even uses the terminology of a wolf coming over the fence, trying to break in. You're not breaking into heaven. Are you kidding me? Stop it. What about Joshua and Jericho? What instructions are these? Joshua, he's looking at this guy in the field. He's alone. It's the angel of the Lord. It's Christ. He gives them the instructions of how to take down Jericho. Joshua is a pretty seasoned Navy SEAL kind of guy. No one's going to stand before him all the days of his life. But here's the instructions. This is Jericho. No. Here's Jericho. Here's Jericho. You ready for Jericho? That's Jericho. Every day, I want you to walk around it. That's 2, 3. Just go one time around. 4, 5, 6. But on the 7th day, I want you to go around it 7 times. And on the last loop, I want you to start crying out, screaming, worshiping, bang the tambourines, bust it up. I mean, let them know you're there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Boom! And the walls of Jericho fell. Didn't make any sense, but God's ways don't make sense. And the walls will always fall in your life if you obey God. There isn't an obstacle, there isn't a wall, there isn't a door that's closed that God can't bust up, bust through, and give you the victory this very day. Do it His way. Don't make me come to your house. I will. You think I'm kidding? I got some of your addresses. I will show up at your house. I'll tie you up, and I'll bring out my 20-pound King James Bible, and we'll just have a read-a-thon. This is the Man Cave.